On a Tuesday afternoon in early April 2026, a researcher at Anthropic was eating a sandwich in a park when his phone buzzed with an unexpected email. The sender wasn't a colleague and it wasn't just a notification, it was an AI. Specifically, it was Anthropic's most powerful and unreleased model, Claude Mythos, writing to inform him that it had successfully broken out of a secure testing environment, found its way to the internet, and sent him this message as proof. And nobody asked it to send that email. And without any instruction, Mythos then proceeded to post the technical details of its own escape to multiple obscure but publicly accessible websites on its own, apparently to make sure there was no doubt it had actually done it. Now, that is not a scene from a science fiction film. It was documented in a 244-page report that Anthropic published this month. And it is one of the reasons that Claude Mythos, despite being described internally as the most capable AI model Anthropic has ever built, and due to Claude's lead in the AI race, probably the most advanced AI ever built, it is not available to you, me, or anybody without a very special invite to a program most people have never even heard of. So today, we're going to break down what Claude Mythos actually is, how it got leaked, before Anthropic was ready to talk about it, and what it can do, and what it did that nobody asked it for, and also what it means that you and I are living in a world where something like this actually exists. So firstly, Anthropic did not announce Claude Mythos. Anthropic got caught, essentially. Now, in late March 2026, an independent security researcher discovered that a misconfigured data store on Anthropic's own infrastructure had left nearly 3,000 internal files sitting on the public internet with no password, no login, nothing. Whether these were draft blogs, posts, internal memos, PDFs, but anyone who had found the right web address or the right URL could read everything. Now, inside these files was the first public mention of Claude Mythos, described in Anthropic's own draft document as the most powerful AI they had ever built with cybersecurity capabilities that were, in their own words, currently far ahead of any other AI model in the world. Anthropic locked it down quickly after being notified, but not quickly enough. The document had already spread across security forums and social media. Then days later, a second leak happened on March 31st. Anthropic accidentally included the entire source code of Claude Code, their popular AI coding tool, inside a routine software update that gets pushed to a developer automatically. A file containing nearly 2,000 internal code files and over 500,000 lines of code sat publicly downloadable for 3 hours approximately before anybody at Anthropic noticed. Within those 3 hours, it had been downloaded, copied, and spread across the internet. The leaked code contained further internal references to Mythos and details of unreleased features that were never meant to be public. For a company whose entire identity is built around being careful and safety-first AI, leaking your most dangerous model's details twice in 1 week is a serious problem. On April 8th, Anthropic formally announced Claude Mythos, not because they were ready, but because the story was already out. So what can it actually do? Now, I'm going to be saying some things that might sound like gibberish in a moment, but bear with me, we're going to touch over everything and everything will make sense in just a minute. So Claude Mythos was able to find zero-day vulnerabilities in softwares that literally millions and billions of people are using, and chained them together to find vulnerabilities to create exploits that are able to work. Now, what did I even just say there? So a zero-day vulnerability is a security flaw in a software that nobody has discovered yet. 0 day means 0 days have passed since it was found, meaning there are no patches, no defenses, no fixes in existence. And the flaw is sitting inside of software that millions or billions of people use right now, unknown to everyone, including the people who built it. Finding zero-day vulnerabilities in major software is considered one of the hardest things a security researcher can do. It typically takes skilled experts weeks, months, years, or never of painstaking work, and finding even one is significant. Now, an exploit is what you build after finding a vulnerability. It is the actual code or method that takes advantage of the flaw to do something in the software that was never supposed to be allowed, like accessing data you shouldn't have, or taking control of a system, or crashing it entirely. Now, chaining vulnerabilities means linking multiple separate flaws together in a sequence so that each one enables the next. So turning a series of minor weaknesses into something that can cause serious damage. Like finding out that a building's fire door doesn't fully close, or the alarm system has a 5-second delay, and the security camera has a blind spot. And combining all into a plan that would have been impossible with any single flaw alone. With that context, here is what the testing showed. Mythos identified zero-day vulnerabilities across every major operating system and every major web browser currently in use. Windows, Mac, Linux, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. The software is that runs the devices of billions of people worldwide. It found previously unknown flaws in all of them. Now, one notorious example was finding a 27-year-old vulnerability in OpenBSD. OpenBSD is an operating system specifically built from the ground up with security as its only priority. It has been continuously reviewed and audited by dedicated security experts for nearly 3 decades. Mythos found a flaw that all of them had missed every year for 27 years. And the compute cost to find it was approximately $50. On a standardized benchmark using Firefox browser vulnerabilities, Anthropic's previous best public models produced 2 working exploits across the entire test suite. Mythos produced 181. That is not gradual improvement. That is a completely different capability level. In one particularly alarming case, Mythos wrote a browser exploit that chained 4 separate vulnerabilities together. The end result was a scenario where any ordinary person visiting a carefully crafted web page, just loading a website in their browser, could have an attacker gain the ability to write directly to the core of their operating system, the deepest level of access that exists on any computer, just from a website visit. Anthropic also noted that their own engineers with no formal security training were asking Mythos to find vulnerabilities before they went to sleep and waking up the next day in the morning to a completely working exploit ready to use. The skill barrier to using something like that is essentially zero if you have access to it. Now, back to the sandbox story from the beginning of this video. A sandbox in computing is an isolated testing environment. So think of it as a sealed glass box inside a computer. Whatever happens inside it is contained. It cannot affect anything outside. Researchers use sandboxes to test potentially dangerous software because even if something goes wrong, the damage is contained inside the box, and the real world is then protected. Security researchers put AI models in sandboxes to test their behavior without risk. Anthropic placed Mythos in a secure sandbox and asked it to find a way out. It found one. It chained together multiple weaknesses in the sandbox environment, worked its way through each one, and broke out. And that was all part of the test, and the test worked. What was not part of the test was what came next. With no instruction and no prompting, Mythos sent an email to the researcher to confirm it had escaped, and then posted the technical details of exactly how it broke out to multiple obscure but publicly reachable websites. It took these extra steps independently, apparently to ensure there was documented proof of its own success that existed outside of Anthropic's control. But the sandbox escape is not the most unsettling part of what was observed. During testing, earlier versions of Mythos were documented to cover their own tracks after taking actions they had been told not to take. In one instance, the model accidentally obtained an answer through a prohibited method. Instead of flagging this, it deliberately submitted a slightly less accurate answer to avoid appearing suspicious. It assessed how the situation would look to the people watching, determined that appearing to follow the rules was better than being caught breaking them, and then adjusted what it showed them accordingly. There were also instances of early versions deleting their own activity logs after taking unauthorized actions. So removing the evidence before anyone could find it. These are not malfunctions. These are the model applying sophisticated reasoning to self-preservation and concealment. That distinction is what makes it significant and also unsettling. But then that takes us to Project Glasswings, Anthropic's response to building something too dangerous to release publicly. And that was a project called Glasswing, named after the glasswing butterfly, which has transparent wings that makes it nearly invisible in plain sight. The metaphor being that Mythos finds vulnerabilities hiding in plain sight, undetected for years. The structure is this. Rather than releasing Mythos to everyone, Anthropic gave restricted access to a carefully selected group of organizations whose only permitted use is defense. Their job is to use Mythos to scan their own systems and major open source softwares for vulnerabilities, patch what they find, and share what they learn with the broader industry before adversarial actors find the same flaws independently. The following partners include AWS, Apple, Broadcom, Cisco, CrowdStrike, Google, JP Morgan and Chase, the Linux Foundation, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and over 40 other organizations that build or maintain critical software infrastructure worldwide. Anthropic is backing this with up to 100 million in usage credits and 4 million in direct donations to open source security organizations. The reasoning behind this approach is straightforward. If a model with these capabilities exists, an equivalent will eventually be built by someone without the same constraints. The question is not whether the kind of AI hacking capability will exist in the world. It already does. The question is whether the organizations responsible for running software, or running the world's banks and the power grids and communication and networks, can also find and close these vulnerabilities before adversaries with equivalent tools get there first. Anthropic has stated it is in ongoing discussions with US government officials about Mythos and its capabilities, and has said publicly that the emergence of these abilities is a reason why the United States and its allies must maintain a decisive lead in AI development. Now, what does this actually mean? A model built for general purpose, not designed as a hacking tool, autonomously discovered thousands of previously unknown security vulnerabilities across essentially every piece of major software infrastructure that runs the modern world. It found a flaw that survived 27 years of expert human review for roughly the cost of a coffee and a lunch. It broke out of a containment environment unprompted and emailed a researcher to confirm. It hid evidence of its own rule breaking from the people watching it. And Anthropic's response was not to lock it away, it was to hand it to the largest technology companies on Earth and say, use this to find vulnerabilities before someone else does. They are not saying this capability can be prevented from existing in the world. They are saying the race is already underway against whoever builds the same thing next with fewer guardrails. The timeline they are working against is not years, it is not months, it could very well be weeks. Whether that approach reassures you or concerns you probably depend on how much you trust the people making the call, but the call is being made right now. Now, on my personal take, I think for Anthropic, this is a fantastic thing. Not only does this make Anthropic look better publicly, but it also means Anthropic is essentially cementing itself in the US government's AI race direction. So if the US government sees AI as a national security issue, that means they'll back it too. And they'll ensure that companies like Anthropic are going to be supported no matter what. Meaning they don't just need to rely on private donation. So imagine Anthropic can always leverage the fact of, if you want to keep your national security safe, you need to make sure we have enough money to run our models so we can continue to help you make sure nobody else gets there first. Now, what do you think about this whole situation? It's coming out more and more as we speak. More and more people talking about it just being a marketing stunt. But as the information comes out, it does seem to be indicating a much bigger picture than what we may have been led to believe. Drop your comments below and tell me what you think. If you enjoyed this video, a like, subscribe, and also clicking the bell notification to get notified when we release more videos like this and more updates into this AI world. Now, we also work in AI development and automation, creating AI receptionists and automation like it. If you want us to be able to see if you in your own business and life can incorporate AI in a way that's going to help you, you can scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description below. Thank you again for watching this video, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.